Hello all, and welcome back to our summary for our Vampire Rebirth, a Vampire the Masquerade 20th edition, or 20th anniversary edition system. So, the night opened up with the kindred waking up one by one, summoned once again to the opera to hear from the prince. As they arrived, the prince seemed distracted and confused, summing up his heartbeat to give him a report about what happened with covering up the masquerade. Evelyn was chosen, and she brought people up with her as kind of a barrier between her and the prince, seeing quite a bit of fear in the prince's odd behavior. He was constantly distracted and answering questions, and somehow the situation with Louisa ended with him wanting more bears brought into the city, as well as a blood hunt was called on Louisa, he wanted the body brought to her before she was diabolized or reached final death, and then demanded everyone leave immediately. This was odd for the prince, and with all that, different kindred went their way. Victoria's story. Victoria made her way back to her domain. Ivy touched base with her, letting her know that their clan were meeting up. Once taking a chance to feed and getting rid of the other gangrel, she reached out to Thomas to get the body back. Thomas informed her that the body was gone. It had been dealt with. Reaching for straws, she tried to come up with a way to hide her diablerie, and only in a major boon to Thomas, he gave her a name and an address. Dario Giovanni. Going there, she was greeted by some of the house staff, and after a few tests, she was brought down to Dario Giovanni under the promise not to reveal what was said there. There she also encountered Josephine, a Zamichi potentially. With that, a deal was struck. He would give her a bauble that would hide her diablerie for a month, and she would bring him 10 bodies tonight. With that, she went to work, kidnapping one from the core of the city, meanwhile grabbing 4 more from her own domain. On the way back, there was a car crash, and she, being involved in the crash, drove away in the hearse. Joey and Arthur met up shortly after that. After the Elysium, Joey had fed and Arthur had found him. Arthur wanted to train in celerity, and Joey was going to get fortitude out of the deal. And as they discussed and trained, the players realized the characters did not know how to teach one another properly. They did not know that blood needed to be exchanged, and after they tried for a few hours, they went their separate ways, claiming they would go to their sires and maybe find out how this happens, how this works. Afterwards, Joey went back for another feeding, trying to get some more blood tonight, as it was getting hard to hunt in the city. He was later called by Estelle and Rose and brought into their adventure. Arthur, spending his night organizing the gangrel into raiding the Sabbat ritual tomorrow night. He discussed getting this set up and convinced them to let Jack come along, as Jack could see what was invisible, and they wouldn't need the Malkavians for such. With that, Arthur touched base with Jack before heading off to find Joey, which we know what happened then. But later he returned to his own domain. Coming across Jack after his adventures, they went out to go get a bear. This led them bringing back a grizzly bear to the city. This led them coming into contact with animal control, stealing animal control's van, driving off into the city, losing a tire from the animal control van, smashing into a car that was almost being driven by Victoria. As she drove off, they spotted her. We now pan back to early in the evening of Jack's adventure. As he looked for a new haven, he found an abandoned toy factory. Looking around, he started hearing noises and made the assumption it was a cat. He ate the cat and encountered something strange, a mascot-like creature that, when it approached, it wanted food. Luckily, Jack had baked cookies, the most useful cookies I've ever seen in an RPG. He offered most of what was left to this creature. It consumed the cookies joyfully, and Jack promised it would bring him an animal of some kind. The creature would prefer if it was something that would fit in its mouth, and Jack took that as the opportunity to get out of there. Meeting up with Arthur, we know the rest of Jack's story. Estelle and Rose paired up leaving Elysium. They had their tag along Elizabeth, and when they started discussing the elders, Elizabeth brought up that Fontaine was also acting strangely, having moments where she would lose track of where she was, etc. They convinced Elizabeth it'd be great to meet Estelle at her haven, or meet Fontaine at her haven. Estelle and Rose along the way. There they encountered the mortal family of Isabella Montaigne, who, through the powers of presence from Elizabeth, invited them in to stay. When Fontaine arrived, she asked which of them brought the situation out, and in a burst of speed, Fontaine acted against Elizabeth. Rose grabbed Estelle and got out of the house, and Fontaine came out with Elizabeth's eyes and had some further questioning. It was decided that the elder wanted to visit somewhere, but she wasn't sure where. And Estelle said she would look into it, saying anything to get out of the situation of this elder who might try and eat them. Leaving there, they contacted Joey, feeling they needed someone with a little more muscle just in case things went wrong. They gathered at Elysium and decided a different mystery might be better. They wanted to look into what happened with Louisa and Victoria, and decided to talk to the Harpies to try and find out what favors might have been brought in for Victoria, how this happened. They managed to get an audience with the Tremere Harpy, Evelyn. There, Joey offered a major boon, and Evelyn spilled the beans that Victoria had claimed a boon that Thomas had owed her. They went to talk to Thomas, and he was not for opening up about what he owed or what he did to pay it back. There were threats thrown both ways, and eventually they were thrown out of Thomas's cafe in a bit of a huff. From there, the group of them decided what the next steps might be. And I believe that is where we left off with them deciding next steps. Alright, session ended in world at 1:25 a.m. Victoria speeding away from Jack and Arthur, and Joey, Estelle, and Rose still on the hunt to find out what Victoria was up to, or if it really was Louisa this whole time. And with that, that was session all. Glad everyone had fun, and I will see you all next game. Bye for now.